Alright everyone, so back at Paris playing the 1-2 $5 on the button game. First playable hand, I looked down at ace, queen 4, single suited on the button. There's a couple early position limps over to the hijack who makes it 25. I 3-bet to 90, and both the limpers and the hijack call. So we're going 4 ways to a flop. Up comes ace 7-2 with 2 hearts, checks over to me, I pot it. Early position player folds, middle position player makes the call for about $100, over to the hijack who calls all in for about $195, and we're going 3 ways to a run out. The turn brings a jack of diamonds, bring in the backdoor flush draw. River brings a 9 of hearts, so pretty awful card. Early position player turns over ace 6, 5-2. The hijack turns over king, jack 4 with 3 hearts, so he's going to take it down here with the nut flush. About an orbit later, I look down at ace, 8-6 rainbow in the cutoff. The small blind and big blind both call. Folds to me, I make it 25, the button and both the blinds call, so we're going 4 ways to a flop. Flop comes 9-9-5 with 2 spades, checks to me, I bet 45, button folds over to the small blind who makes the call, big blind then check raises to 200, I fold and the small blind makes the call, so they're going heads up to a turn. The turn brought an 8, small blind then went ahead and pushed, big blind made the call, river brought a 2, small blind turned over 8-7-6-4, so he flopped the wrap, turned the straight, and the big blind turned over his hand with 9-6-4-3, so he flopped trips and the small blind's going to take it down. We look down at king, queen, 8-7 double suited in the hijack. There are a couple early position limpers. I make it 25 and both the limpers call, so we're going 3 ways to a flop. Flop comes jack 10-6 rainbow, checks to me, I bet 80 and only the small blind makes the call, so we're going heads up to a turn. The turn brings an ace of hearts, bring in the backdoor flush draw. My opponent bets enough to put me all in, and of course I make the call, so we're going heads up to a river. River brings in the backdoor flush with a 5 of hearts, and I wonder if there would be some people here who would wait for their opponent to show to potentially get some information. I don't decide to do that. I just turn over my hand, obviously having the nuts, and of course we take it down, so much needed double up here. We look down at ace, queen 8, single suited in the big blind. Third time I've had aces here in the first hour, lost with the first 2. Let's see if we can change things. Small blind folds to me, I make it 20, and only the cutoff calls, so we're going heads up to a flop. Up comes king 9-6 with 2 diamonds. I check over to my opponent who bets 35. And here, a couple problems with this hand. I do obviously have the nut flush blocker, but against a loose passive opponent, that's not really going to do much as he's not likely to fold many hands. And there are just so many bad turn cards here. Even if I think I'm ahead, I mean, any like 5, 7, 8, 10, jack, queen, really just going to bring in so many draws. I mean, of course, some of those would give me a backdoor, but really going to be hard to continue, so for those reasons, I fold. Here, look down at jack 9, 8-7, single suited middle position. There are a couple limpers to me. I also limp over to the button who makes it 25. Big blind calls to me, and I also call. So we're going 3 ways to a flop. Flop comes jack 8 rainbow. Big blind checks to me. I check over to the original raiser, who unfortunately checks back. So still 3 ways to a turn. The turn brings a 6. Big blind's counting out some chips, and he bets 85. I don't see any point of doing anything here besides calling, so that's what I do, and the button folds. So we're going heads up to a river. River brings a 3, so obviously nothing to worry about here as I still have the nuts. My opponent pretty quickly pots it. I go ahead and re-jam, and he quickly makes the call, and he turns over pocket 6s. I turn over my hand showing him the bad news, and he mucks his other 2 cards. So kind of happy to play against this opponent as he was the same opponent that beat me in the first hand with the king, jack 4, rivering the flush. So get a little revenge here and take down a nice pot. Here, look down at ace 10, 8-3, single suited on the button. There are 3 limpers to me. I check my option, and we're going 4 ways to a flop. Flop comes 7-6-4 all spades. All my opponents check to me, and I check back as well. So still 4 ways to a turn. Turn brings a 2, checks over to the cutoff who bets 15. I make it 45. Folds back to him, and he says he has a low flush and then folds. So my question is, do you ever just flat there in hopes that he continues bluffing on the river? Or do you go ahead and raise like I did to charge potential sets? So we take it down. Here, look down at ace, jack 8 rainbow in the cutoff. There are a couple limpers to me. I make it 25 and the button and the small blind call. So we're going 3 ways to a flop. Flop comes ace 6-5 rainbow, checks to me, I bet 60 and only the small blind calls, so we're going heads up to a turn. The turn brings a jack, my opponent checks again, I bet 180 and he quickly makes the call, so heads up to a river. The The river looks a lot like a 4, but it's actually a 5. My opponent checks again, and I'm counting off some chips. I bet 400, and he immediately throws it into the muck. And he tells me that he had a full wrap and good hands. So 1 for 4 here with aces, and we're going to take it down. Here, look down at ace, king, 9-6, double suited in the big blind. Small blind calls to me. I make it 20, and there are 4 callers. So we're going 5 ways to a flop. Flop comes queen, jack, 8 with 2 hearts. Checks to me, I check, and action checks through. So still 5 ways to a turn. The turn brings a 5, checks over to me, I check, over to middle position who bets 100. Everyone folds over to me, and I believe if there was another call or two, I definitely would have been more likely to call here, but I just didn't believe I was getting the correct odds. I mean, the turn obviously does give me now a gutter to the 7, but that might not be good, if I am up against 10-9, so I fold. Let me know what you guys think about this one. Here, look down at ace, 8, 5, 4, single suited middle position. There are a couple limpers to me. I also limp, 3 limpers behind, and we're going 6 ways to a flop. The flop comes 7, 6, 2 with 2 spades. Small blind leads 30, folds to me. I make it 105, over to a late position player who thinks for a little bit and folds, over to the small blind who makes the call. So we're going heads up to a turn. Turn brings an 8, so now giving me the third nuts. My opponent checks to me, and this player plays a lot of hands. He's the same opponent that had the king, king, jack 4. He also had the pocket 6s in that jack, jack 8 hand. So I believe that my straight is going to be best against a lot of his calling range. So I bet 240, and he thinks for a bit and pushes all in. I, of course, make the call, and we're going heads up to a river. The river brings a 4, now putting a one-liner on the board. He doesn't look too happy about it, and I say small straight and turn over my hand, and he looks for a bit before mucking. So not sure what he had, but happy to take it down here. After the hand was over, me and a couple of the guys were chatting, and the late position player who tank folded on the flop said he folded pocket 6s, and another player said he had 10-9. So looks like my flop aggression pays off, as obviously the 10-9 would have got there and would have scooped it. Here, look down at 9-7-4-2, single suited on the button in a double board bomb pot. The flops come out ace, 10-5 with 2 hearts and 9-9-6. Checks over to me, I bet 25, and there are 3 callers, so we're going 4 ways to 2 turns. Turns come out a 6 on the top and a queen on the bottom. Checks to me again, I bet 85, and there's 1 caller, so we're going heads up to 2 rivers. So in double board bomb pots, you really want to play hands that can win both boards. Here, I don't really have a great hand, but obviously having the trips on one board plus the open-ended straight on the other, this is definitely a hand I can win on both boards. If your hand can only really win on one side of the board, you really want that hand to be completely strong and essentially not be able to get drawn out on. The rivers bring out a 2 on the top and a 9 on the bottom. My opponent checks to me, I bet 275, and he snap calls and turns over pocket aces. So he's going to take the top, and obviously I take down the bottom with quads. Here, look down at ace, ace, 5, 4, double suited on the button. There are a couple limpers to me. I make it 25, and only the cutoff calls. So we're going heads up to a flop. The flop comes out queen, jack 3, rainbow. My opponent checks to me. I bet 25, and he quickly folds. So we take it down. Here, look down at ace, king, jack 7, double suited in the small blind. I make it 20, and there are 3 callers, so we're going 4 ways to a flop. Flop comes king, 8-8, rainbow, and instead of checking like I normally would have in my earlier days, I decided to bet 25. This is a bet that's pretty much is going to protect my equity. If someone has me beat here, they're pretty much going to at least call. But, I definitely don't want to give a free card to like any kind of hand like pocket 10s, pocket 9s, something like that can obviously beat me on the turn. So I bet 25 and everyone folds, so we take it down. Here, look down at 9-9-8-2, double suited in middle position in a double board bomb pot. The flops come out ace, 6, 5 with 2 clubs and 9-8-5 with 2 hearts. Action checks to me, and while I don't have a great hand here on either board, I definitely have a big enough piece to want to continue, so I bet 45, kind of a blocker type bet. Next player, he makes it 125. There are 2 callers to me, and I make the call, so we're going 4 ways to 2 turns. Turns bring a 3 on the top and a 5 on the bottom. Checks to me, I bet 500. The original raiser on the flop folds. Next player has about 1150. He puts it all in the middle. Early position player only has a couple hundred left. He also puts it all in the middle, and of course I make the call. So we're going 3 ways to 2 rivers. The rivers come out a 2 of clubs on the top and a 3 of clubs on the bottom. I turn over my hand. The late position player turns over his. He has ace 10, 7, 4. So he flopped and open-ended on both boards, hit the open-ended on the top, and we're going to go ahead and scoop him here. The early position player jokes, says jack high is no good, and he mucks his card. So we're going to take down a pretty nice sized pot here. So the last day of my Vegas trip, I actually played in a vloggers game hosted by Greg of Greg Goes All In. I was sitting next to John of Slow Poker and Rosie of Next Gen Poker. They were asking me about PLO in general and more specifically double board bomb pots. And I was telling them that one lesson I've learned the hard way is that nuts straights in double board bomb pots are very troublesome. Like, let's take my opponent's hand here in that hand as an example. So he did have the nut straight on the top on the turn. He also did have an open-ended straight draw on the bottom board. But the bottom board's paired, so if he's up against the boat, which he was, he's drawing dead on that board. So essentially he's playing for a chop on a board that had 2 clubs and 2 spades. So he has to fade a lot of river cards, and it's just a really tough spot for him. So keep that in mind next time you guys are playing double board bomb pots. Not saying that it's correct to fold nut straights all the time, but just be aware of the board textures when you do have these nut straights. You look down at ace, jack, jack 8, single suited on the button. There's 1 limp. Next player makes it 20. I call and the limper calls. So we're going 3 ways to a flop. Flop comes 8-5-4 with 2 spades. Checks to me, I bet 35, and only the early position player calls. So we're going heads up to a turn. The turn brings a jack. My opponent checks to me, I bet 65, and he quickly makes the call. So heads up to a river. River brings a queen. My opponent checks again, and I'm pretty confident that I have the best hand. Does bring in 10-9, but shouldn't change anything. I bet 125, and he thinks for a bit and says he has 2 pair, but unfortunately folds. So we take it down. Shortly after that hand was over, my buddy Josh, who now goes by PLO Professor here on YouTube, texted me asking me if I wanted to grab dinner. I agreed and didn't think I was gone too long when I came back and I realized all my stuff and all my chips were gone. I talked to the floor and apparently I got picked up. This was the first time I've ever got picked up after playing poker for a very long time. I wanted to play a little while longer, but didn't feel like getting back on the list of 50 people. So after playing 7 hours, I was forced to cash in my chips.
What's up, guys? Wayne back here with you. So today I was in for 800, out for 29.63, so profit of 21.63. Kind of unfortunate getting picked up. You know, I was definitely planning on playing at least another 3 hours. Played for almost 7, but you know, sometimes that's how it goes. So if you guys enjoyed it, let me know. If you haven't seen the previous episode, I'll link it up here, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Take care.